Did you do?
He said that to me.
We're getting recorded.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I can,
It's all good.
okay, it's recording. I've even had coffee today.
Okay to begin?
They have a name picked out. Okay.
Good?
Yes.
All right. Welcome, everyone. March 18th, 11:31 a.m. I'd love to call our meeting to order. Do we have quorum? I believe we do. Yes. Okay, very good. Before we get into the action items, first of all, just a few thank yous. One, to staff. The organization of the meeting materials on the email links was terrific. That is a huge step forward for us. I think it really allowed preparation for the meeting to be very smooth. So I'm bummed out Susan's not here. I'm sure she had a little.
He
to do
did
with that.
all the work, yeah.
So,
We'll tell her.
we'll tell her. But that was terrific. And also thanks to everybody who could be here. Your flexibility with rescheduling was great. That's probably going to be a tough week for us, I would imagine, for most years. The middle of March, spring break is probably a conflict most years. So we'll take a look at how the schedule's looking for March of next year and maybe be more proactive if we need to be about staying away from spring break. But thank you guys so much for being here today. I think we've got some fun stuff to get into. So
Thank you for the comment on the agenda. It's something that our new assistant city has implemented with all agendas, council meetings, all the way down. We're trying to make it uniform and easier for everyone to.
yeah, fantastic. Perfect. All right. So I'd like a motion and a second, if we could, on approval of the meeting minutes or any comments on them before we discuss.
Luke, I'll motion.
Be 1 second. All in favor? Right. All opposed? Minutes are approved. Citizen comment period. Victoria, do we have anyone with us today?
No. Or Todd, but we don't have any other.
All right. Todd, any commentary or topics from you today?
Not this time.
All right, perfect. So we'll jump into reports and presentations. We'll defer to staff on this one.
Yes. So the first one will be we have a presentation, and I'm sorry that I was recording here, but if you, in the future, what I'll do is I'll share the report on the screen. But most of you, oh, do you need one? Yeah. Is there an extra one down there?
You can use
I
mine.
can
I
share.
have mine on my computer.
Okay.
We'll
Share
share.
it there too. That extra?
As we've done in the past, there's a full one here. Yep. We share information on our sales tax receipts for the month, and this is a good way to gauge how good we're doing and how, if we're staying on track for meeting the projected numbers that our finance department has sent out. So has set forth for the budget year. So the city sales and use tax collection was up 12.25% from year over year, from February 2023 to 2024. And then the year-to-date actual receipts are up 11%. So we've been seeing that very consistent through the pandemic. You know, like when we started the pandemic and everybody's shopping more local, more people staying fewer locals to shop. And even with the increase in online sales, it really still has been a positive benefit to our city. And then, you know, we also have a lot of new retail that has opened up. Costco is in the major increase in sales tax. And have so many more to come. So that's good news for us. We're staying on track with our sales tax receipts. Local business announcements is the next item on the slide. If you haven't checked them out, Bloodworth Barbecue is on Center Street, and they are a locally owned barbecue place. It's a husband and wife that live here in Kyle, and they looked kind of remind me of your story, Julian, as they looked for a long time for the right place to open. And so they're open right now. I went on Saturday and had their chopped beef sandwich and their sliced brisket sandwich. Were delicious. For right now, they're only open on Saturdays at 11 until they're sold out. And then Mondays, they do only sandwich combos. Check them out if you're in downtown Kyle. Shark Burger is also in over on the east side near Amberwood. And they're located inside of one of the convenience stores. But Susan tried them over the weekend and she said they were very good. And then Snooze also, I don't know if y'all have been, but Snooze is also a wonderful addition to our breakfast and brunch restaurants here in Kyle. More local business news, more than 28 additional businesses are verified as coming. And this is usually what Susan does on these. If you look at this next couple of pages, she has this report out that shows all the new businesses that are coming, their locations, and we don't have an opening date on a lot of them, but when we do, then we'll let you know that's open. Okay. What else? Board member update. Oh yeah. So if you don't have any questions on the sales tax report or the new businesses that are coming, quickly we go around the room and have any board members that want to give an update, stuff that's coming, stuff that's new. I know Julie usually has updates. So Jenna, do you have any? You want to start?
Well, our biggest thing recently has been getting our corporate stores into the top 10 out of the whole chain, like 62. And Kyle officially, after the February sales, we made it into 8th place. So Kyle's doing really
That's
good.
awesome.
We're doing really good.
That's good.
And we're also trying to start catering. So if anyone ever wants like coffee, Cambros for any business or anything, we're trying to push that a lot. But yeah, Summerman's doing pretty good.
Congratulations. 8 out of how many?
62.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's number one?
Circle C, always, forever, since the day they opened. I
By
worked
like a
there-
lot?
Yeah, I worked there for 2.5 years, and just a little comparison, like we have like 5 baristas behind the bar. They have 9 or 10
Oh, wow.
all day, every day.
Wow.
Circle C is insane. It's
Caffeinated.
hard to work there.
They need to take
Just drive up there, you'll see.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
that. You're not going to leave any?
Yeah, and what's amazing, it's the same shopping center as Taco Deli. So if you want tacos, most people go to Summer Moon to get Taco Deli tacos in the morning.
Yeah, because they sell them from the Summer Moon, yeah. Even though they're like right next to each other.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. They have a great outdoor area there too. It's really nice.
Absolutely. And
We
we can
offer
do
coffee.
donations as well to schools. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, update, just to let everyone know, next Tuesday is a chamber luncheon. We partnered with SCORE, so it's a multi-chamber event. So all of the Hayes County chambers, GSMP, and a couple of other organizations, all the way down to the New Braunfels Chamber of Commerce. We expect about 150 people, and they are speaking about ChatGPT and how you can use it in your marketing strategy. So we're very excited about that. Make sure you make your reservation soon. If you're not a member, or if you know someone that wants to be there and they're not members of the chamber, they can use a promo code SCORE and they'll get the member price, which is $25. And then we're very happy to report that we are working with Hayes CISD for the April luncheon. It will be catered by the CTE Culinary Arts students, and we're highlighting the CTE program. Dr. Wright will start off with an update for Hayes CISD, and then Susie Mitchell will speak about the CTE program. I think they might want to highlight a little bit of the programs that they do for workforce for the hospital as well. But it's about workforce development and how they're preparing the students to work within their communities. So we're very excited about that. And registration is already open. And then in the meantime, mark your calendar for April 4th for the Business Expo. It is at Gemstone Palace, open to the public, absolutely free to attend. We have about 10 booths open for exhibitors, and then we'll be sold out. So last year we had about 430 people attend, so we expect that this year. And again, it's open to the public, absolutely free. So if you want to show off your business,
Free
Summer
coffee.
Moon will be there. Yeah, lots of businesses booked already. So that's a quick update.
Just a few quick notes on recruiting. So Tiger Woods Golf Course Designs owns a company called PopStroke, which is a really high-end miniature golf concept, essentially, with a bar, restaurant, ice cream place, etc. They are seriously considering an aggressive expansion in this part of Texas, and they've identified some locations that are not Kyle. I am trying to weasel Kyle in to be seriously considered. So Victoria, I'll touch base with you on that separately.
Saw that on the news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're getting pretty aggressive in Texas, and I've been to their facilities, and they're nice, and I think would be a great fit here in Kyle. It'd give our residents a really nice local entertainment place to go. Very kid friendly, as you might imagine, but also very parent friendly.
Mhm.
And that you can really oversee your kids from the dining area, and it's all enclosed and fenced, so they're not going to go running out the street, etc. They've really done a nice job with the concept. So more to follow on that. I'm in touch directly with Tiger Woods Designs, so hopefully we'll get considered. So I don't know if you've had conversations with them.
We could talk. Yeah.
Also, I was approached by a sports organization who's very interested in Kyle and supporting any projects that may come along that look like a convention center that have a lot of indoor space where there could be lots of participation in sports. They're a heavy user of the Austin Convention Center, so they're going to be without a home for significant events. We won't be able to react in time to capture those. But long term, they're in need of more space even once the convention center is done in Austin. So again, another one I think we can catch up on. I don't know if the sports complex is going to be big enough for the type of events they put on, but yeah, an interesting conversation nonetheless.
Okay. Good.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't have anything.
Yeah, I was hoping that I could talk to you later on about, my wife and I, for the longest time, have been happy with the idea of just having the one store at Kyle. But now we're warming up to maybe opening up more than one. We definitely like the Hayes area. And now we're warming up more to Kyle's growing so rapidly, maybe, east side of Kyle, some nice developments. I think I talked to you a little bit about that last time. So we're wanting to explore other areas. And now that Eddie mentioned the golf course, if those people come along, I know you mentioned ice cream, so that's something that could also be a fit at some point. But yeah, that's really just all I've got to add. We're actually thinking about maybe expansion towards the end of this year, early next year. We'll see where that goes.
From the hospital perspective, I think I've shared it before, but we're just excited about the opening of our new cath lab. That brings it just some expanded clinical skill sets, really for EP, so some advanced cardiology work, which is great. Typically the community would have to travel down into Austin for that, and now we can obviously keep them here, which is wonderful. How long was your trauma center? It's a 2. Mm-hmm.
We're still in the throes of Taxiway Alpha reconstruction and just preparing for the eclipse. There's a lot of people that like to fly into areas for the eclipse. We're right on the edge, not in the path of totality. So we could have no one or we could have a bunch of people. It depends on who forgot to make their reservations to Fredericksburg. So that's where we are.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah. Still catching up.
Mom brain. I do have a question about something unrelated to any of this. I read an article just this past week about Tesla expanding into Kyle.
Mhm.
And I just didn't
Yeah, I
know.
think it's part of the same project that's been going on in South. I think happens is when they finish out their new space, they apply for permits for that finish out, and the name is now attached to it.
Oh, okay.
That's the media looking at the permits that have been.
Got it. They're just expanding their
It's the
existing
same- Yeah, it's like.
footprint. And is it Tesla or Tesla contractors?
It's, I don't know for a fact. I think it's a little bit of both,
Okay.
is what we understand. But. But you know how they are.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're building out their space.
Okay.
Thank you. We can move on to the next item.
Beautiful.
Oh, yes, and a great moment to stop and grab our lunch. And then get into that. Okay.
Mighty fine.
They're mine.
I still prefer P. Terry's, but
I love pizza.
I am
All right. So, as many of you know, we've asked the mayor to formally engage with council on how they would like to see us as a board and interact with them. What types of projects, what should our scope should be? So, the mayor actually brought up an agenda item with council to guide us toward evaluating hotel tax revenues and what might the opportunities for the city be. So I think he left it pretty open-ended, which gives us a lot of room to navigate, take this in several different directions. And we're very early in the process. So, you know, in speaking with Victoria, I believe present hotel tax collections are in the vicinity of 600,000 a year. So we will obviously get a detailed revenue history from finance and be able to present that back to the group. So we know exactly where we're starting from. But then I think what the mayor really wants us to do is evaluate how do we do competitively against cities that we should compete with, similar size, et cetera. And I think, you know, the hypothesis is we don't have nearly the beds that we need in Kyle from a hotel perspective. We don't have a convention center. Some of the other things that would be a natural draw to fill a lot of hotel rooms aren't here yet. But I think the question is, what should it be? What could it represent for the city? So I think there's a few interesting things I wanted to share with the group. And please recognize this is just the beginning. So we're going to learn a lot more about hotel tax revenues and how to position ourselves advantageously within the state of Texas to take advantage of the revenues that are generated. So the first amount of hotel tax goes directly to the state. I believe it's 7%. So if you stay in a hotel room in Kyle, the first 7% goes to the state of Texas. About 92% of that goes right to the general fund. Interestingly, 8% doesn't. So 8% goes to the governor's office that they can use to help fund tourism. And it's a very broad definition. So one of the things that I told the mayor we should be focused on is the grants that are available from the governor's office to compete to bring sports events to our community. So this is something that other municipalities who have a lot of facilities and a lot of hotel rooms use as a competitive advantage. And if you think about how many Final Fours, women's and men's, as an example, that find their way to Texas as a home, this is a direct correlation to that grant program that the governor's office runs. So as we're looking at hotel tax revenue, it's not just what can we do locally to collect more in hotel taxes, but what will allow us to fish successfully in this pool of 8% of the hotel tax collected all over the state. How can we bring some of that money back to Kyle? So I think the Sportsplex project has the ability perhaps to help on that front, as well as some of the other development that we're talking about. But there is money available that's already collected by the state that we have the opportunity to pursue. Also, state statute allows for an additional 2% above and beyond what we've already been approved for, if we decide that should be allocated to a specific project that's approved by the state. I don't know the whole process we would need to go through in order to implement that 2%.
Venue tax, are you talking about a venue tax?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's called a venue tax within the hotel tax. Yeah, so I don't know that you can double dip, but I did read that even though we are slotted at 7% for local collection of hotel tax, in addition to what the state collects, the way I read it, it looks like we're eligible to add 2% as long as we designate it for a project that is going to be run here that will lead to more tourism down the road. And it looked a little open-ended. It wasn't so specific that it had to be a convention center. It could be a hotel. It could be improvements in other facilities that would help draw people here. So I think as we look at what should hotel tax mean for the city of Kyle, there's a few different places for us to really look at and say, what could it be? So it's not just about we've got to convince more hotels to come here, which is part of what I think needs to be the plan, but we'll get there. But there's other things we can benefit from sooner than that if the city decides they want to do it. So just again, some initial thoughts on what's out there right now. The county can also assess hotel tax. So I don't know what's happening right now in Hayes County, if Hayes County is also collecting hotel tax on hotel rooms here, but that would be an interesting learning. And if they're not collecting hotel tax on rooms here, should there be broader conversations with the county on working together toward justifying that, especially if we could be potentially beneficiaries of some of that hotel tax revenue that would go to the county. So there's a lot to learn here. And what I want to do is learn from you all, how should we attack this? Because there is a lot of research to be done. I think this is an example of where council has acknowledged there's a lot to learn here, and they want to enable us to get after it. So which means some of this research work falls to us. So this could be tabled under be careful what you ask for. So, we went to the mayor and said, we really do want to contribute. We want to be helpful to long-term projects that are going to benefit our community. This was the first one that came up. So it's something that I feel we can make a difference here, because we're doing work that right now the city council isn't focused on. I think if we were to go back to them with some initial findings, and we have until June to come back to them with our formal report. But I think as soon as we report back to them some of these learnings, if we don't have targeted an increase of 2% directed toward a facility upgrade or new facility construction, that's a very real number that we could legitimately request that the state approve. And then going after the tourism dollars that are available through the governor's office, most of them seem to be designated towards sports or tourism generated events where you're competing with other states. That's really what they want to see. They don't want the cities of Texas to all battle each other for the same dollars. If an event's going to be here or San Antonio, that's not where they weigh in. But if we're fighting against Louisiana or Oklahoma or New Mexico, et cetera, to bring events here, part of the approval of funding is demonstrating a competitive process, that we were up against other municipalities for this event that we're seeking funding for. So I think there's money available that we can go fight for. We need to convince some events to call Kyle their home if we want to do that. And I think we create a pretty compelling case. And even though we may not be the beneficiaries of 100% of the hotel revenue by bringing an event here, just based on the number of beds we can make available, I think there would be benefits to us to do that. And hopefully that can go a long way to convincing hotels that this would be a good place for them to consider putting some beds in. So obviously we have someone in our midst who lives and breathes this. So we've got some resources, I think, internally where we've got a little experience on this front. This is something that we could we can embrace, but I would maybe love to go around the room and just get everyone's initial take on how do we feel about dedicating effort against this? And any thoughts on where we should prioritize our start? How does that sound to you, Victoria?
Yes.
Yeah. Todd, why don't we start with you?
Oh,
Yeah.
Something real quick. I know that we went back and listened to the city council's conversation about this, and Susan and I outlined, or Susan did for me, outlined what council's conversation looked like, and then we can then go around. And the first one they said is for us to identify benchmark cities, whether they are here in the region or in Texas or even outside of the state. And then as specific to a hotel conference center, what did those deal structures look like? What were some of the good and bad about some of those deals? Like, we can just look at the San Marcos Conference Center. I'm not saying it's good or it's a bad deal. I'm just saying, that was so many years ago. How did they structure that deal, and what they learned from it? And how would they have done things differently now is kind of where I think some of the conversation needs to go towards. And then the other topic was, that's one. The other one was the 10-year trajectory of hotel revenue, and then comparing ourselves with benchmark cities, which we know with the very small amount of hotels that we have in Kyle, where we fall versus Utah and San Marcos, Round Rock. It seems like we're competing with Cedar Park a lot. I know they had some really great announcements recently, and Hutto as well is an up-and-coming city that I've seen in the news quite a bit. So, and I know that they don't have not all of them have the hotel conference centers, but they do have hotels that we can compare ourselves. And then the last thing was for us to look at the voluntary collection agreement with Airbnb. So in 2019, City Council also passed an agreement with Airbnb for them to voluntarily help collect taxes for us. So we also want to see what that impact has been since that.
I had a question on that. Does that include VRBO as well?
That's a good question. I don't know. It was very specific to Airbnb,
Yeah.
so I don't know how. We don't have an agreement with, VRBO. Then how would we collect that?
Yeah.
That's why this is a voluntary collection agreement. They are just voluntary.
Yeah, I know in Llano County, VRBO is certainly within scope. So it may be interesting if they're not yet included. They have a significant market share.
Okay.
And given their headquarters in Austin, that might be one that we could get done.
Okay. And then the last one was a potential venue tax. That 2% was another comment from council. So that's what we understood from their conversation and their direction. Now I guess we can go around the room and
Yeah.
see if we want to talk about our benchmark city. Which one of us has, of the board has experience or would like to maybe tackle some of this information and bring it back. Council did give us a deadline of June. And I would say the second meeting in June. So that way we're able to meet the middle of June and then bring it back to them the second meeting in June.
Victoria, what would you list as qualifiers to identify benchmark cities? What would we look at? Population, number of hotels?
Yeah, I think population is probably a good one because, it's hard to maybe compare ourselves to Austin, right? I mean,
We couldn't possibly.
if we could maybe, if that's something that y'all agree upon, I think population and location, we could look at those cities that are just outside of the major MSAs. We can even extend out to the DFW area to San Antonio and look at their suburbs and see which of them have hotel conference centers. And then which of them just have a lot of hotels, like Buda has so many of them. And, you know, they don't have the conference center though piece to it, but we can still compare. So there's the cities that have a lot of hotels, and we can evaluate their hotel occupancy tax versus ours. And then the second piece was identifying benchmark cities for hotel conference centers and how those deals were structured and what those cities have learned from that experience.
Do we know for existing hotels, kind of the basics in terms of how many beds are here? What does their vacancy rate look like? What events are bringing people in to stay today? Or who the main users of the hotel, those main users
Some
are?
of that information. Is that what you said? We are members of the, what is it, Texas? Okay. We received some information, and we can share that with you, but I think it's good to maybe just also reach out to our local hotels. I don't know if really you have a good relationship with them. I know you have host some of your events there, so maybe it's a conversation of sitting down with them. And besides the city events that I know of, like Pie in the Sky or the Texas Extravaganza, the Kyle Fair, like, you know, what other reasons? I think weddings are a big draw to the city, especially because we have Texas Old Town. You know, maybe we can look at some of our venues that bring the most people to town. Texas Old Town hosts over 300 weddings a year, 350 weddings a year. So what's the question?
Well, just kind of what those
Yeah,
benchmarks are. I mean, because if that's a great point related to weddings. You know, are there some industries already in place that we can help promote or bring in other businesses that would just kind of grow that natural propensity for things like weddings in this area? Or just what is the benchmark? I don't even know how many hotels are in Kyle or how many rooms, or are they typically sitting at 70% full, or are they all at 90% full all the time? Or
Well, do we want to start with that question? Do we want to start by maybe somebody like Julie, who already has a relationship with some of the hotels? Would you want to volunteer to get some of
Yeah,
that
I
data?
actually made some calls before I came here just to see if we can learn a little bit more. So years ago, when the Kyle Chamber also had the tourism contract with the city, we on a monthly basis learned that. So you have 86 beds, for instance, and this was their occupancy and what drew them, what didn't draw them. I think where we could start is learning about what Kyle has. So we know what we're looking for when we're looking at a comparable comparison and a benchmark city, because it's hard for us to compare. Even if we were to use Buda, they have, I don't know, 10 more hotels or more than we do. So that's really not a fair comparison. And if we can find some, just my outside thinking, some younger convention centers that have been in maybe 2 or 3 years, that started at where we are today, and how that impacted them and how they went through that process, rather than comparing us to a city that may have had a convention center for 10 years, might be really hard to compare us at that, because the people won't be there to give us that history.
well, the question is based on the number of hotels we have now, is that not enough for a population our size for the events that we have? Is that too many beds? Like, do we know that? I don't know.
I don't think we know it yet.
Like the price point, like if they're all
Yeah, that's true.
this type of hotel, are we losing out on?
Yeah.
I think we sometimes lose out on hotel rooms because we don't have the facility to host
Mhm.
the events. You know, you're looking looking at a luncheon, for instance, and your maximum capacity and not having catering for it or something, we lose weddings because their families can't stay really close. Yeah,
I believe we,
there are a lot of things that might factor into that.
and we submitted for to host a statewide event, and I believe we did not win. We lost to Rockwall because we didn't have the meeting space, but
Yeah.
we bused people to Texas Old Town, but I don't think that's what they wanted. I think they wanted a hotel with a conference center attached. So we didn't win that bid.
I think that, as we look at what the opportunity is, I think it's fair to evaluate it short, medium, long term.
Yeah.
Long term, I'd love to have a casino and a resort conference center that's enormous, that could have entertainment here on a regular basis, be a huge generator of revenue for the region. Okay, so that's years and years out. It's a big things have to change with state government for that to happen. But as you get closer to today, what do we have today? Well, I would say Airbnb and VRBO is a really good place for us to look to immediate revenue. Not just immediate revenue, but also we may want to tout that. If we learn that there is a lot of it going on here, then that is another source of lodging for people who are thinking of coming here. That's quite economical. If you can have people sharing private homes compared to individual hotel nights, there's some organizations who look for that. So I think if we could find a way to make sure, hey, let's make sure everyone's playing by the rules. And if there's short-term rentals being done in the city of Kyle, let's make sure they're paying hotel tax as they should be, as mandated by the state. So that's going to yield a number. So I think there's growth available there. But then should that be something that goes on the city website? Should we be putting that in packages when events are talking to us, that it's this many hotel beds, but we also have this many people who have short-term rentals through Airbnb and VRBO. So we increase our beds as a municipality simply by documenting who's doing it. And, the trade-in for someone fessing up that they're doing it is we're going to help you. We're going to pitch you to people who are in need of lodging, and we're going to help fill your vacancies. So I think there's a symbiotic relationship with individual short-term rentals that could be really positive. But I think that short term, there's got to be other things. What else could we do in the short term that doesn't require us to have these municipal projects approved and funded, which take a really long time? I would throw out something like, what do we do around F1 and the other really large events that come to COTA? How are we courting people who are going to come to town for those events? Because Austin's going to sell out. So if Austin's going to sell out, everyone starts looking a little further out for their lodging. So do we create some sort of relationship with COTA where maybe there's a busing service that we put in place around COTA that makes the hotels that are here more viable? I don't know exactly what the answer is, but live off the land a little bit in the short term has got to be part of the strategy. What's happening around the University of Texas home football game? How far out of Austin are those people staying? And can we compete with Cedar Park and Leander and other places that are similar drives away from University of Texas? Can we start competing for some of those hotel nights? And maybe we already get them. Maybe we're sold out those weekends, to your point, Yasmin. But I think, the whole theory of living off the land, what's here now that we can take advantage of, that's a short-term opportunity to impact the long-term direction the mayor and council want to see us go as a municipality. But getting a bunch of hotels built isn't going to happen quickly. So if we want to impact things in the near term, again, it's fighting for our fair share of the money the governor collects that's available to help recruit events, take advantage of short-term vacation rentals, and then how do we market ourselves around the big events that are coming to the region? But I think there's probably much more than that we're not even talking about yet. Are there big hill country wine and beer festivals that attract a lot of people? And could we house some of those folks? I just don't know what those events are if they're happening.
I did want to share on the report that we have that it does say the number of Airbnb rooms in our zip code, which may not be the city itself, but it's 109. But there also is a line that says home away and it says 11, and I looked up home away and they are VRBO.
I haven't looked on VRBO to search Kyle, Texas, to see how many there are. But again, if it's 130 and we have 4 hotels, my guess is the short-term vacation rental is a significant portion of our available bed nights.
And I can say from those larger events that are happening in Austin at CODA or UT home games, the demand is there to drive farther this way. I mean, when the city is sold out, there are people who are staying in San Antonio and driving in for the event. So it's more of getting the city of Kyle out there as an option because people are just driving past.
Victoria, could we start, just the way my own mind thinks is I need to know where we are now. So when we're looking at benchmark cities, what funds do we have? Could we get a report from finance that shows the last 5 years and how our hot funds have come in and what the average is? And then also a report on what they're used for now. So we know where the money's going and how it's being used. And then before we can even look at deal structure or pros and cons in some way, we have to kind of need to know what kind of revenue it's going to take to run the smallest of conventions or conference center, where we could probably find a smaller conference center within Texas somewhere and get a feel for that. Or I don't know, maybe council even has something in place where they have a guess.
I mean,
How to start.
we can put together maybe a list of some of the cities that we've visited, like Frisco, Mansfield, those type of cities, for different reasons, for their parks or their sports facilities, their trails, stuff. So, what I did want to note is that all of the voting board members have received a city email, and they are able to use that email to request any information from finance or from any other entity that's looking, because we felt it'd be more official to have a City of Kyle email. The ex officios, I did not. If you want one, you can have one, but I figured your chamber email is pretty significant as well. And so is the airport, ACC. So we only created one for the voting board members. But so yes, if we want to go down the list of what do we need to know and who would like to take the role of requesting that information, you're welcome to reach out to finance, and they're aware of some of the requests that'll be. Okay. But we need to request it as soon as possible, also because they're in the middle of budget planning. So the sooner we can get it for them, and we just have to make a little note on there. You can copy me all the requests, but if we can make a note on there that you're doing this work at the direction of City Council, so that they'll know.
I wonder if they can provide that by month. We might be able to guess which events. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We really should have good relationships with all those hotels.
I think typically our Parks and Rec department does, mainly because whenever we have events, they rent some hotels for the hot air balloon pilots or whoever comes in town, maybe the musical acts, and they usually have those connections.
They're not a visitors trail or anything like that.
No, we don't have the chamber acts as somewhat of a, because they filter those calls naturally, but we don't have an official.
We don't keep track of numbers anymore.
I know where our city limits are in relation to like Driftwood, like 150. My father's building a hotel right there, right now, right next to the city store.
Oh, yeah, that's outside of our.
That's right outside.
Can you move it?
Yeah. 1 mile.
Yeah.
That's
I
right.
think Driftwood, they have all the wineries, breweries, distilleries. I mean, he's built like half of them, and then weddings, have all the wedding venues. So that's something to look into to try to bring.
Yeah.
People could stay in Kyle, and it's just a 10-minute back road drive. But they hold a lot of events there.
I just don't know how you determine how many of our hotel stays are overflow from events from neighboring cities versus people coming specifically to Kyle.
So someone could
Very
research
difficult.
major events in the area.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe easier to find when the beds were full.
yeah, that's what I'm wondering
And
if we
then
can do it
back
by,
to-
yeah, per,
yeah.
like by month.
There's services like Placer AI will be able to pull phone data for us, and it usually will tell you where those, like in a weekend, like where those people are traveling to. Well, so let's just say we can identify that they're all going into the UT Austin area. Well, we know they're here for the game, or they're all going to the Circuit of the Americas. We know, and so that they use that sort of data for us. So when we had our Kyle Fair last year, we noted that most people would go to the HEB shopping center and back. They would go to the Texican and back, Casa Garcia's. We knew like the locations that they were visiting the most when they were here in town. They
Yeah,
go to the
that's kinda
outlets.
creepy.
And
So crazy. That's amazing.
yeah, it's really cool data. So we could maybe the days where we see the weekends or when we see a big spike in hotel stays, maybe we could request the data from that weekend and see where
I mean,
they travel.
South by Southwest just ended. Did we
Mhm.
have any people from South by Southwest staying here?
Yeah.
Other than Shaq.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
No, I think the large component here too, and I don't know if it translated to the city council or not, was just hotel convention center, and understanding where that's worked well and how those deals were structured. So I think I see it as kind of like two pieces, right? And that's another big component of it because ultimately, we need to have more of a draw here for people to have a reason to stay. I mean, obviously we can piggyback on other larger events in the area, but I think further range down the road, what we're interested in is why do people want to come to Kyle? And why are they going to stay in Kyle? I think of recently I've seen just a ton of events at Kalahari, and that's kind of like a one-stop kind of shop thing. Come for the weekend, you can go to the water park if you want, but then it's a massive complex, huge convention center, tons of events there, and then a ton of restaurants and other businesses in there too, which I think is, I would love to learn from that if we have any resources or connection there.
That's in
I'm not.
It's very, very easy. That's what's fine.
Mhm.
okay.
Because and I think that's an interesting model because there's convention centers that will just host conventions, right? Where you just go like for a convention, but then there's other things that are larger, more resorts with the convention center that I'd be interested in kind of learning more about the differences between the two and the deals, how they're structured between the two, right? Because like some places you go and it's like, oh, it's nice just for a convention center, but you're never going to go back. Or like Kalahari or like large ones like Gaylord Convention Center, those are where you can take your family or spend a weekend and frequent more often.
Contrast that with an Embassy Suites convention center setup, which I think, did GSMP work with them on that?
I was actually just wondering that. I need to find out if Hayes County participates or if they are part of that hot tax. And then I think it's been so long that conference center tax is almost coming up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because obviously, we want to right size it to the city of Kyle and what are the aspirations of the city.
Mhm.
So if you do one hotel connected to a small convention center, which, should we say multiple ballrooms under the same roof? I don't know exactly what we classify that as, but that's one type of option.
Mhm.
And then what does that generate? What does it cost? versus obviously Kalahari is quite an investment by a lot
Sure.
of people. So what's the right place for the city of Kyle to play? How much would the city want to put a bond out for to get funded to do a convention center? And I don't know what the appetite of the residents is to make anything like that happen yet, but I do think there's different models that the city can consider. And I love the Kalahari model, and that place is just unbelievable.
Mhm.
I don't know what the city council's appetite is, although we have had projects on the docket that were very water focused, along with hotel residential as well as entertainment that have been positively viewed by the city before.
Mhm.
So nothing's too crazy. I mean, the beauty of the biggest asset we may have is I-35 connecting San Antonio to Austin.
Well, you know, I think to that point, when you read about sports and sports developments, you know, I've heard San Antonio and Austin mentioned as a potential MLB expansion. Well, if it's an MLB expansion, where's the affiliate? You know, and I think of like Round Rock Express. And I think of some of these other big things that bring in, from a sports perspective, bring in a lot of revenue and a lot of people.
Would be shocked. I toil in quite a bit of this and shocked at the number of hotel nights associated with a fencing tournament. Fencing tournaments don't get courted by every city in the country, but all they need is an indoor building with 10 feet of clear height. Volleyball needs 30 feet. Not every facility can hold a volleyball event. Every facility can host a wrestling tournament. Every facility can host a fencing event. So when you just get a flat floor that is air conditioned and heated, you become an option for all these sports out there that have events. USA Fencing Nationals goes on for 9 days. And I want to say they have about 10,000 kids participating.
Wow.
Parents on top of that. But it's in Reno most years. So the events can be enormous. They're not sexy. Nobody talks about them, but they represent a tremendous number of heads and beds.
I'm speaking to one of our local game and hobby shops, also gaming conventions and model building, displaying conventions. Or they definitely would love to have here in town and not have to go elsewhere.
Well, one of the reasons I asked about the track and whether it can be rented out is you've got remote control car racing. That's a pretty big deal. And boy, I would imagine people would love to compete on that facility. I didn't know whether that was even an option.
Little side note, but there's like the Porsche Club of America. They rented out the F1 track. They had to sign all these contracts if you're going to like race on that track. And if your car leaks oil, to clean it up, they'll charge you $1,000 a foot for oil. So to stop your car, like the amount of braking distance you need, and you may not even know if it's leaking.
Yeah.
So they're like, do I want to even run my car on this track?
Yeah, sure,
Wow.
sure.
We get calls all the time, people wanting to race on the airport, all the time. Right.
Well,
Also,
go
sorry,
ahead.
just to give 2 cents on some of the events, it's good to know what you can possibly get and then also maybe what you can't, because I know in San Marcos, just sports wise, they aren't eligible to compete for some like tournaments and things like that because they don't have a certain level or tier of hotel rooms or things like that. And so a lot of them, if they're coming in, they'll actually stay in Austin because according to the NCAA contract or whatever it is, they have to stay in whatever level of hotel.
So you get
Could be some
passed up,
interesting
because you
regional,
don't have certain things.
maybe there's some regional
Yeah,
partnerships
how do you
available.
find that out?
I don't know, but I can try this. I think the Texas state knows because they've had to apply for different, or they've wanted to apply for different tournaments and things like that they weren't eligible for, but I don't know what those requirements are.
The NCAA publishes their documents to solicit proposals.
Okay.
So those are public documents. So any event, if we wanted to look at a Final Four RFP, we could probably access all that information and all those details would be there.
Who allocates hot funds now? Who decides where that money is spent?
I think most of it right now is being spent on our special events, like the Pie in the Sky and the Kyle Fair.
I believe it's
Oh.
designated in the budget by now.
Yeah.
And I think it has to go to tourism,
Mhm.
yeah, but different events, yeah.
Separate guidelines. You can also have people apply to get grants.
Cassidy, have you guys done fly-ins at the airport?
Yes, but they were associated with the air show. We've never done a separately advertised fly-in, although there will be one this year. We'll just fly, it's just an excuse to fly in and people park their planes, and some airports allow you to camp under the wing of your plane, or so depending on who's hosting it, they'll do, fly-ins for, pancake breakfast. You come in and do that, or all the way up to, the Sun and Funs and Oshkoshes, where there's, hundreds of thousands of people that come fly their planes in, and they have, exhibitors and.
So Julie, did you want to volunteer to reach out to finance?
I will reach out and I will request hot funds by month over the last 3 years instead of 5. If we're going by month, might be a little crazy to do all that. And then what the funds are used for, where they're allocated and spent. And then the Airbnb voluntary collection since 2019 over the last 3 years by month, because I'm sure it'll be very low. But is there anything else funding wise based on what we need to ask for?
Can we ask if VRBO is within the scope of that or whether that's only Airbnb?
Yes, I can ask. I don't
Is it
know if
all
there's a-
short-term
I don't
rentals
think
or
there's
if it's-
any type of report for that, but I'll ask.
Because Airbnb likely remits that tax directly to the city. So I just don't
So
know.
why didn't they do?
It
They didn't do
existed
it
in
with VRBO.
2019. I don't know if VRBO existed in
Oh, yeah,
2019.
it existed.
It did?
I think it existed before, yeah, I think it existed before Airbnb.
Oh, wow.
It might be within the language of the ordinance. It might have said Airbnb or any other.
Right.
Yeah.
Short-term
So that
rental.
might be something that you can do a language adjustment and have council.
We will not be the only municipality hunting on this front. I just got a letter from Llano County because I have a short-term rental in Llano County. So they are reaching out, even though we pay through the web file portal with the state comptroller, we pay hotel tax through that. The local municipalities are instituting their own short-term vacation rental taxes. So it's definitely happening. We will not be the only one looking at it.
Like we did a long
San Marcos did like some sort of survey or report, figure out what they might have been missing out on.
Because it was real big in Lakewood, Big Kid area.
And Victoria, I have to do this through the public records request, or can I just email Pervez?
I think you can just email
Okay.
Pervez and Andy
Okay.
and
And there's a analysis of hotel occupancy revenues. If you look at the email for this meeting, this is one of the documents that was on there. You can link right to it. You can mention in relation to this memo,
Okay.
because city council has asked us to do the work. So that might be a healthy thing to share with finance.
Okay.
So they don't think we're just being a nuisance for no reason.
okay, so Julie.
I will do that.
And does anyone feel that they would be willing to reach out to our local hotels to get more information? Okay.
That's a good fit. And Victoria, I can reach out to some folks who benefit right now from the governor's grant for sports events
Okay,
to get some more insights on how to be competitive there. And I don't have any
How's
relation.
population now?
58.5.
I don't have any relationships with other cities, but I'm very happy to reach out and see if we can get someone to talk to us.
I think maybe if somebody wants to just research, conference centers in the area within DFW, within Austin, within San Antonio, I think those are great places.
I can do
start.
that, Eddie.
Luke said he would do that.
I'll make a list of
Yeah.
everything that's open like in the past like 2 or 3 years and
Yeah. See what,
Sure.
it looks like. And if it's comparable in population, that'd be more helpful. I think there's still some lessons to be learned from cities that are slightly larger than us, but.
Maybe also, if
Margaritaville.
you said you want to have a
Conference center.
Yep.
Mhm.
Right, and UDO does as well. So there's the research of the benchmark cities that have hotel conference centers. And there's maybe just benchmark cities that just have hotels. So do you want to research some of those? Todd was just saying like Lakeway has quite a few more hotels, but they're smaller.
also a conference center too. Okay, if it's conference center and.
It might be interesting to look at cities that are right outside college towns. Like UNT, University of North Texas in Denton. Wonder what the suburbs around there like, or other comparable college towns.
Well, there's also that huge sports center in Bryan, just outside College Station.
Because one thing that's working against us is that since San Marcos is a huge college town, talk about a lot of hotels, a lot. So I don't know. Kind of what are other comparable cities? Can they warrant additional conference centers next to a college town? Because there are so many options right next door.
I will say when we've looked at things before for hotels, we're bringing people in to tour like the Hayes and Caldwell area. One thing we've noticed is there's a lack of boutique or higher end hotels.
Mhm.
And so when we've had them stay, they've stayed at Creek Haven. Is that still the name of it here, Kyle?
The Sage Hill Inn?
Sage Hill Inn. Thank
Mm.
you. Creek Haven's in
In
Waverly. Yeah, so there's a couple, but they're kind of far out. And so there are a lot of the, roadside hotels, but there's a lack of the higher end.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all right there on 35.
Quality doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So Eddie, you also brought up the county's collection of the taxes. You think
Yeah, I can
you
look into
could-
that.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
and maybe what they're using their hotel occupancy tax for. Okay.
So just to be clear, I'm looking at benchmark cities without convention centers. I'll be looking with.
Yeah, and I think we can just stick, for the moment, let's just stick to Texas because it could overwhelming if we look at all of them. Unless there's just a superb one that I know of outside of state, but we can start here. Is that about?
Yeah, I think there's something to the mega region discussions between San Antonio and Austin that might provide another lens. Are there cities who have gone through that? And what was their process? So the obvious is Dallas, Fort Worth.
Mhm.
What other cities may have just been growing toward each other and have the people in the middle deal with hotels and convention centers? That might be interesting for us to learn.
Keller, Grapevine. Those are two cities to potentially look at. Right there in the middle.
I mean,
Forget about
I
you.
forget about me. Yeah.
Is there a list of comparables that cities that how typically pay survey staff, survey facility surveys? Well, councils used to look
Yes.
versus some offshoots, which throw a curveball in there. It's not a city that you guys do.
That's a good point. I wonder if there's any cities that you know that if they weren't on the list, council would immediately go, why is the city not on this list? Do you know any that they typically look at?
The ones that I'm thinking of are mainly the ones we just did for salary survey and also benefits as well. And they're all just around there.
Okay.
So we can start with those and see, work our way. I can provide that list.
How old is the New Braunfels Convention Center?
I didn't know there was one.
Yeah.
They have a convention, San Marcos has a conference.
So there's the big. What is the difference? I mean, is it size that makes one a convention center? I mean,
Yeah, like New Braunfels, I think it's determined if it's a convention, if you can like drive a truck into it. Whereas like the conference centers are more like the ballroom spaces that are carpeted and.
So maybe that's something else, is to clarify the definition of conference center and convention center before you start looking at the venues. Because you don't want to get them mixed up, looking at comparable data.
Agree. I'm gonna Google away and see what comes up.
Yeah.
We want to be able to.
Yeah.
Expo up there. Yeah. Yes. We don't have that. Okay. After this meeting, we will send out some notes and outline who, so that we can all know. Did everybody get their login? Kathy, if you feel that you wanted to email. You don't want me.
I have enough emails in my life, I
Okay.
think. Thank you for the offer.
And if you haven't returned that acknowledgement form, you can do that. And if you haven't done your training,
Oh,
remind you, you have 90 days. to
we
do your training,
forgot.
then you send out. Or let her know if you did it.
So we follow my just check emails for her.
Yes. Did you already do it?
No. I'll answer that.
We've been a little busy.
Well,
But I'll
and also if you do it for other
Yes, like
organizations.
Dr. Wright did it already for his position, and he just emailed Jennifer. I don't know. the
How long
name.
is it good for? Just 1 year? Oh, really?
Maybe- Did you do it before?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Okay.
I think he would have.
I absolutely can. Yes,
I will.
I will. I can and I will. Anything to not have to watch those videos again.
Wildly entertaining.
Yeah, it's like.
All right, I need a motion and a second to adjourn. Anyone second? Second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? All right. Meeting adjourned, 12:51 PM. Give you the gift of 9 minutes back to your life.